What does it mean to build something that truly serves people, not just speaks about them? I am Chisom Udeze, your host on Overnight Wisdom, and today I am in conversation with Attia Taylor, founder of Womanly Magazine, musician, artist, and health advocate, about what it means to build work that is intentional, community rooted, and deeply human. We talk about identity, service, creativity, health justice, and the emotional cost of doing work that matters while still trying to hold on to yourself. We talk about why most health systems don't just fail, they exclude, and what it really takes to build something for communities that have been overlooked for far too long. We also go deeper into the loneliness of mission-driven work, into the tension between the one who helps and remembering who you are beyond that. We go into the question, who are you when you're not fixing, building, or proving? This is a conversation about clarity of identity, purpose, and power, and a reminder that meaningful work should not cost you your entire self. Let's jump in. Hi, Attia.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm great.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
great.
really nice to have you here.
It's great to be here. I'm so grateful.
You're really sweet. You also have a really great voice. Like you have a very soothing voice.
I'm so conscious about my voice, so that is really nice to hear.
No, you have a great voice. I hear a lot of voices these days with this podcast, and yours is already really soothing. So I'm looking forward to this chat. Normally, I just like to jump in, so I'm going to do the same here. I want to meet you. Can you tell us a little bit about, who you are and how you became the powerhouse that you are?
Yeah, absolutely. I am from North Philadelphia, born and raised, and my grandparents raised me. My parents were, one was emotionally absent, the other was completely absent. And, I spent a lot of time as a child dreaming about my future. And then once I, kind of hit puberty, I became very curious about sexual and reproductive health. So I got my mom to buy me some books on the body but I've always been interested in magazines and print. And I remember reading 17 and just being so enamored by the medium of print and books and pictures and how everything was laid out for information. So when I got to college at Temple, I studied communication. I got a broad range of what it means to communicate information. I interned at Paper Magazine and very quickly realized that the world of pop media wasn't my jam. I respect the medium. It felt a little bit too limited for me. So I ended up getting a job at Planned Parenthood. I was an admin, and it really just kind of snowballed from there. I learned about how to communicate sexual reproductive health information just because my boss at the time was like, "You're really talented and smart. I want you to go out and do stuff in the org." So I learned, and then long story short, the magazine was born out of wanting to build a print magazine that had intention. I'm also a musician. As long as I can remember, I've been wanting to make music, singing, writing, using electronic instruments to build sound walls and create dimensions around sound. So that's another element of what I do.
I love that. I did find your music because I was looking you up and like, oh my gosh, she's a musician too. So that's pretty cool. And thanks for sharing also a bit about your background and how that impacted you, and perhaps in some sense, and I guess we'll get into it, also just shape how you see the world. To your point about how you've built Womanly Magazine, I do want to talk about that. It reminds me, I guess, of what it means to create space when you see a gap, because your magazine is quite specific in terms of who you name. And those communities are often either an afterthought or not really engaged in the same way you have managed to do it. And just from, looking at some of your work and the beauty and the intentionality that goes behind it. So, it's not just another magazine, trying to fill a gap. Like, it's really meaningful in the way it's been curated. So for listeners who do not know Womanly Magazine, can you tell us a little bit about it? And specifically, I know you already alluded to it, but why does it exist?
The main reason, the mission for me personally was because I grew up seeing my family, my grandmother, who's a Black woman, my mother struggle with their health without any guidance or information. So having to go through things that were preventable. And I had a light bulb moment when I was right out of college that sometimes it's just a matter of information that can be a huge difference in someone's life, like reading one line on in a book, in a magazine, on the internet, can change and save someone's life. And I was thinking about how I'm not seeing health information shared in a way that's inviting, exciting, culturally inclusive. When I think of health information, I think of long blocks of text. I think of pamphlets in the doctor's office that are with stock images, and it's usually like very out of touch. And I was like, well, why? I love art. I'm an artist. I see so many illustrators and photographers. Now it's blown up on Instagram, creating art that is healthful and it is beautiful and culturally sensitive. And I wanted to get that to the people who need it. And that includes people like my mom and my grandmother, who's now passed, but my grandmother who's alive, she had a heart attack recently. And so this is still a problem. But I wanted to do something in my way that felt intentional and beautiful, because we deserve beauty too. We deserve health packaged in a way that feels like it's for us. And it never is. It's always reactive. It feels so sterile. And everybody comes to me and they're like, I had the worst experience at the doctor's office. I want to hear more. I had a great experience. So I'm trying to bridge the gap between what people experience in the healthcare sector and in their personal lives. We are hopefully a conduit for getting people to be excited about taking care of their self, or be excited to learn more about what it is they might experience in 10 years because they're going through perimenopause or menopause. It shouldn't be this dread. Ageism is part of it. Racism is part of it. Classism is part of it. As you know, working in health systems, it's a very intricate infrastructure that often excludes people without privilege, and whatever that means. And accessibility, people with disabilities are often left out. Black women are often left out. Womanly tries to be a voice, but also a platform to share the stories that are often left out, and they're intentionally left out. So the last issue we did, it was called The Future is Fat, because fat phobia in our country, probably the world, is
The world.
beyond. And I learned a lot about it just through creating the issue. But we did that because fat people will always exist, regardless of whether Ozempic is here or the media tries to make you pressure you to be thin. Fat people will exist now, have existed in the past, in the present, and will be in the future. And when we think about things like AI and we think about the healthcare system as it is now and in the future, how do we navigate those systems with fat inclusion? So that's very kind of the mission of the work, is to say, hey, here's a problem, and here's a group of people who are being discriminated against or left out or excluded. How do we create a space for them to share their story and be seen and be heard?
What was coming up for me this week, I had a chat with a group of migrant women in Oslo who are pregnant and about to give birth. Most of them are racialized and they are absolutely terrified, right? Of course, they're holding the complexity that, of course, it's great to be in a country where healthcare is free, and they're not in the US where the chances of, say, Black women dying in pregnancy is 4 times, 5 times higher than other women, or white women specifically. In talking to them, we also understood that we are surviving in the system. Like, it's better in Norway than it is in, say, the US, but survival is not healthcare. like, so even when you are in a
Yeah.
place that quote unquote on paper is functional and works, due to racialization, due to your religion, if you're wearing a hijab, for example, due to your disability, you will experience it differently and worse. And that's quite an interesting construct to hold, because sometimes people just say, oh, yeah, but I mean, you have free healthcare, everything is fine. Like, no, because you still
Right.
have to navigate the world at this intersection. And then, of course, I think about just the US, also having lived there, just how mortifying sometimes it can be, especially for, Black women, disabled women. And yeah.
Yeah. It's not black and white. There's no one experience. There's a million experiences, and we're not going to be able to catch them all. But if we can try to just get people in the healthcare system, even, we've gotten the attention of major institutions to think about what some of that nuance is when they're
Mm,
providing care or thinking about building new systems for care. So that visibility is for people to feel seen and heard in their survival, but it's also for those healthcare systems and those nurses and those doctors and the folks on the ground giving care to say, wait, let me think about this person's experience before I
mm.
expose them to something that might be harmful.
What did you learn that you did not know beforehand with this new issue on The Future is Fat?
Oh man. I mean, I think it was just through reading interviews and hearing people talk about their experience or just stories. I learned the level as a non-fat person. Just like anything, if you're not in that community, you just don't know what you don't know. So I just learned the pain and the struggle and the presence of anti-fat bias in everything. It really opened my eyes. And I had read right before the issue, I had read Roxane Gay's book Hunger, and that really, oh my god, blew my mind. I had no idea the level of discrimination and hate, and it's really
Mm,
pure hate. It's really a lot of people probably projecting, but I mean, society is just not kind to fat people. And from a healthcare perspective, I learned how many fat people are being dismissed in the healthcare space because of their weight. They're being
mm,
told that their weight is the problem when it very much could not be. Fat people are experiencing more pain or dying because their symptoms are being dismissed at a higher rate. Because it's like, you just need to lose weight. Come back when you lose weight, because that's probably the problem. It's just, it's not always the case. It's just like it's being glossed over, and that's just leading to poor outcomes. So
mm.
I mean, I had an idea, but it's just that consciousness, I think, that builds understanding, empathy, and hopefully leads to better outcomes.
Absolutely. And I guess as well, just the magnitude, right? Of you might anticipate, but then hearing those stories actually makes it a bit more concrete, a lot more
Yeah.
concrete, actually. I'm curious, still on this topic, because I know the women you engage are also from diverse backgrounds. Did you see a difference in terms of fat phobia or their negative experiences with the healthcare system? Do they have different experiences when they're not in the US? Like if they go to the Caribbean or somewhere in Africa, does that change or no?
I mean, I can only speak from the stories that I've gotten, but we do get quite a few international experiences, and it's the same
The same.
across the board. I mean, anti-fat bias is global.
Yeah.
It's global. And so, I mean, obviously, it intersects with our healthcare system in the US. And so that has its own problems for women, and based on race, based on class. So you'll probably see it bump up against those other issues we have here in the US. But I don't think anywhere you go, you're going to be treated fairly.
Hmm.
You might. I can't speak to it. Based on what I've seen, it seems doubtful.
Thanks for sharing. I mean, it's you're doing important work and
Thank you.
necessary work as well. Because I don't think I can think of many magazines who shine lights, on
Yeah, that
this.
was a big thing for creating Womanly, When I was growing up, the magazines I was consuming were thin white women often. It was more pages than not. It has gotten way more inclusive over the years, but I wanted to create a magazine that you could flip through every page and see someone that looks like you or have an experience that resonates with you. And that's always the intention. Every issue is to say who's not being included in those other magazines. Let's get them here. Let's honor them because those stories matter. And I was just tired of seeing the same old, same old. I wanted something fresh. I feel that people need it and want it.
Yeah, love that. Okay, so I want to talk a bit more about you. Today, I want to focus on identity clarity. In your own words, how do you see yourself in the world? And what type
Hmm.
of leader are you?
That's a deep question. I spend so much time in the weeds with other people's stories that sometimes I forget about my own.
Hmm.
I am someone who is deeply introspective. I spend a lot of time thinking about myself and my mental health and my past and how it informs my future and who I want to be. I am someone who is a product of community and the good from the good and the bad. I grew up in a boarding school environment. I went to boarding school from the age 7 to the age 17, and that communal space was pivotal in how I think about the way the world works, how I need to rely on others to get to where I need to go. That has both driven me in my work and in my personal life, um, especially in terms of my career. When I was 17, I joined an organization as a participant called Girls Rock in Philadelphia. It's a camp for girls and non binary children from age, I think it's like 8 to 17. It's a week-long camp where you learn self-esteem and you learn an instrument and you play music. And I went when I was 17, and then I volunteered for like a decade or something after that, and that was also very communal, and it taught me how important, because everyone working, most of the folks who are running the camp are volunteers. So I saw that structure work, and I saw the change from 1 week of children coming into the camp and leaving. And so that really kind of light bulbed for me. This community structure works to help people build a better life for themselves and understand the opportunity that they have in front of them. I show up in the world as a health advocate, someone who is willing to do the hard work, to roll up my sleeves if something needs to be done to make change. I've very quickly learned where my place is in the movement. As I've gotten older, being in the streets and being kind of on the ground is a harder fight for me. But I've learned that through organization and community development, I've been able to have a place in the movement. And I often think, and a lot of people say, oh, I feel so bad because I'm not like protesting. I'm not out in the streets. I go to protest here and there, but the work I do is daily. It's like wake up thinking about this work, go to bed thinking about this work, sometimes dreaming about this work. And so I know that I'm in it. I don't have to leave my house sometimes or all the time to be able to know that I'm keeping grounded in what's the goal, which is liberation. Yeah, that's where I show up. I'm very aware of the structures that are against this work, the structures that are ironclad to knock this down or not push forward or keep it from receiving funding. But I can't stop. I can't stop. I just won't. I won't stop. As exhausting as it is, I've been pivoting and pivoting and pivoting because I know how deeply people appreciate it and how much people need it.
Thanks for sharing. A lot is happening in my head right now, so I have a couple of follow-ups. But first, I also just want to affirm on protesting, you will never find me on the street protesting. I don't do crowds. I can't manage
Same.
it.
It's
You
hard.
know, for me, it's borderline impossible. The only time I was out at a protest was during Black Lives Matter
Mm,
protest here in Oslo. And even so, I kept a distance from the crowd.
yeah.
But there are other ways in which I show up,
Yeah.
that I can measure, that I see, that I actually materialize. So I think, oftentimes in justice work, sometimes we judge if people are not showing up. As we show up, we think that, they're not doing enough or their work does not matter. I think we all have to show up, where we can. I often think about change as a flywheel. We have to tinker where we can, all of us, kind of just like moving
Yeah.
things forward. And so just wanted to say that, also affirm that resonated, because I don't go out.
I mean, I'll show up in the streets if I need to, like Black Lives Matter, Free Palestine. I will show up, but I'm not the every week protester.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not. No. And I
No,
respect and I appreciate those people because
I
that's
appreciate
necessary
it.
work.
Yes,
But it's
absolutely.
just not me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I also do really well at the intersection of, I want to talk to the leaders, I want to talk to the policymakers, I want to talk to the community. Yeah. So I think there's some people who are really great organizers, even for showing up for protests. And I think that's important. But yeah, I think there are different ways in which we show up. And I think there needs to be grace, and
Yeah.
support for that as well. I actually want to ask you, I do understand the passion you have for this work, as somebody who also is passionate about a lot of work that is exhausting.
Hmm.
I know that there is also a loneliness and an isolation that sometimes comes with doing that work. So even though you get the support and you know that it is beneficial to the community that you were solving for, there is also that
Yeah.
isolation in it. And also when you were sharing, you talked about the people and how it's beneficial for them. Who supports you? How do
Hmm.
you replenish?
Yeah, that's a good question. I am often lonely in the work. I'm often overwhelmed in the work. I'm often exhausted in the work. And I grew up in a space where we didn't complain, right? It's like, just do it. Don't complain. Don't complain about it. Just get up and do it. So I feel very conscious of how I share about my struggles in the work because I don't want to seem ungrateful or, you know, this need to appear like I have it all together. So I fall apart at home. I fall apart in front of my husband. I fall apart in front of my close friends who are also in this work, in this movement. I'm good friends with folks who kind of are doing similar work as me. And we do have moments together where it's just like, let me tell you, girl, this is crazy. Or I'm so sick and tired of this. And so I have my pods, I have my friends from childhood and they hold me up and they keep me together. Some days it's hard. The
Hmm.
fundraising is hard. That's the hardest part is trying to get people to financially support this work and believe in it from a financial perspective. Because often the folks we're trying to serve are not the people who are going to be our funders, which is fine. That's the point. So going, this direction to help people, it's a tough thing when I speak this language. And so this is a learning curve for me, asking for money and being in these spaces where I have to code switch and pretend like I'm seasoned in fun and fundraising. I'm an artist. I come from the work, the people who have been, in need of this platform. So for me to start going over to the other side it's been a struggle.
I can imagine. I was having this conversation recently. Sometimes when you have courage to do what you do, you have a lot of courage. And I think that sometimes, at least maybe in my own experience and in my friends who are doing similar work, is people sometimes, system structures, and also community members, at least in my case, only see you as that courage.
Mm, mm,
Somebody needs to take the fight, ask Chisom. Somebody needs to do this, she'll probably do it. And I think there is that duty of care that we owe to each other, both as community members within a practice or a movement. And also, there's a responsibility then for systems to support that. But of course, like if you're doing something that is even a tad bit more interesting than vanilla, then it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to give you money because it could be a risk. Why do I want to give you money? Why don't I do just something that feels nice? Let's put face mask on our skin and then we're good, right? So their
Yeah.
priorities are a bit different in that sense. So I guess one, thank you for sharing about, your experience. I think it's meaningful. I think it's important that we voice it more because I know a lot of people who are doing this work who are exhausted. And, like you, no matter what, they will get up, they'll do it again, right? And I think that there needs to be more care, both from companies, from institutions, from funders, and I think even more importantly, from the community where possible as well. So
Yeah.
just thanks for sharing that.
Of course, absolutely. I should share about it more. I think thank you for this platform because I'm an introvert. I don't talk a lot about my problems publicly, but I do need folks to know, like, if you respect and appreciate this work, there is a lot of, we're not some big corporate giant. I don't have any, I didn't have a windfall of money at some point or that like I got seed funding. There was none of that. This was from scratch and it's
Hmm.
still from scratch. So it's important to know that this is a grassroots movement. It might look glamorous, the design's pretty, but it's grassroots. It's very scrappy. A lot of time is volunteered in this work.
Yes. I think all of us collectively also need to be more intentional about where we put our money. One of the things I've seen, at least in my neck of the woods in Europe, in Norway, for example, is oftentimes even members of our community will support another thing financially, but from our own setup, there's still that expectation of this work should be free,
Mm,
right? In some sense. So I think there's that, but there's also just being mindful in, maybe we don't even have money to give, but where do we have leverage? Maybe it's a workplace. Like, how can we say, hey, by the way, Womanly Magazine, can we think about them for our CSR? Right. So thinking more broadly around, yes, you have to go through the hurdle of applying for grants and funding, which is so crushing, mind numbing, and especially when it's not funded. Like you're essentially just tossing darts in the dark, right? And hoping it catches
yeah.
sometimes. But I think each and every one of us can evaluate where do we have, access maybe at our workplace to say, hey, by the way, might you consider donating to this organization because of the work that you're doing? So just also saying it for listeners who are listening to this, we're not all completely powerless. It's just an interrogating where do we have leverage and how can we, tweak it
Yeah.
to support the people we want to see thrive.
100%. Yeah. It's little things. Sometimes it's just sharing about Womanly, maybe share it in your in your work newsletter or on your Instagram, or sometimes it's donate $5 a month. Like it's little things add up. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk to you a bit about success. What did it used to mean to you, and what does it mean now? Is it the same? Has it evolved?
It definitely evolved because so much of the success that I think I envisioned when we started or even midway has been happening. And that success is cultural. It's resonating with people in a way that is growing and being spread and shared. I've always wanted Womanly to be a resource to be shared. And that's why I created a print magazine, because print lives longer than the internet. Print is, it's really something that sticks around. It sits on coffee tables, it sits in doctors' offices, it can be revisited, it can be shared, it can be gifted. The internet is way more fleeting. For we have another issue coming out this fall, and to see people excited about it, we got like over 1,000 submissions, and to see it shared and respected in a way that feels culturally authentic is success to me. That feels successful. That's the way that I want the success to keep going. And to go back to, what my success looks like going forward would be to build a sustainable model for keeping Womanly alive on its own. So right now it relies on a lot of free labor. It relies on a lot of community involvement, and that's great, but we need more institutional support. We need more funding to keep this going. So right now myself and team are just working on building models and frameworks that have the ability to keep the work going even if I'm not able to do it. Like I don't want to be the reason Womanly exists. I don't want that to be, if I don't want to do it anymore, it ends. I want it to live on because I think it's an important resource, or whatever it looks like in an iteration after maybe it changes to something else. How does it stay in people's lives as a resource in whatever iteration in the next 10 years, the next 20 years, the next 30 years? How has my legacy carrying on to future generations through Womanly? So financial success, cultural success, all of those things.
I love that. The goal is always to not be indispensable to whatever it is you're building, right? It needs to survive you in a sense.
Yeah.
So just leaning in to this for a bit around financial success. Can you frame what that looks like? Because I'm just imagining whoever is listening to this and they want a little bit of specificity around what can they do for you tomorrow to
Yeah.
support financial success for Womanly.
Yeah, that's a good question. We have a number of ways that we build financial sustainability. One of those ways is through the community, monthly or yearly donations, which includes a copy of the print issue. It's our membership, or subscription, however you want to call it. It's a financial contribution, monthly or yearly. We also have, we work with advertisers quite a bit, whether they're small businesses or larger brands. We only work with brands that we believe are going to be beneficial to our audience, that we want people to put their money in the right places and feel like they can trust what we're sharing. But that the financial piece is huge because advertising dollars really do create the difference, at least at the beginning. We also have a fiscal sponsor. We're fiscally sponsored by the field. You can make a tax deductible donation of any amount, which you can find on our website to donate. So those are the main three ways I think right now that we create sustainability. We do brand partnerships as well. We create films. I think the work is so flexible, but the first three are the ways that we want to be kind of keeping things afloat.
Okay. I have subscription, I have advertisement, and there's the donation through the field. And a question for people who are not in the US who might want to support, what does that look like?
It's a good question. I mean, buying our magazines, we ship internationally. Everything we do is able to be supported internationally.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks for sharing. Okay,
Yeah.
so I do want to ask you about representation. It's something that is, I think, anyone who just looks up your work can see that that is important. And
Mhm.
oftentimes, representation, the way it shows up in society, is as a token. So, how do you differentiate, even say the people you work with or in the systems in which you operate in? What does true representation actually look like?
It's a good question. I don't think it's an easy answer because there's so many experiences that need to be highlighted, and it's delicate, right? You can't just we need to cover this, so let's you have to make sure it feels aligned, and the folks that you're representing, are their voices are in that representation, right? So I can't write something from the perspective of a fat person or a trans person because I'm not those things. So the opportunity has to be really authentic and really has to respect and honor the community that it's trying to serve. And I think, a lot of we see a lot in Pride Month, right? Like Capital One has a pride logo. And then that's what you're mentioning in, like, it's very shallow. It's very like, hey, we do it. It's like, but it's really the day-to-day work. It's really the, like, how are you supporting, if you're a bank, how are you supporting trans people every day? How are you supporting people who have financial, what do you call it? Who need financial support or who have financial illiteracy. So people who need to learn about finance, and just how are you showing up for gay people, for trans people in your systems? Not on Pride, not on in June, not on Black History Month. Like, sure, great, fine, thanks. But that's really a money grab, if we're being real. Like, don't do this just to get our money. Do this because you believe in the community, and they don't. So I want to. I don't know what Capital One is doing. To be clear, I don't have any info. That was an example.
But a lot of these organizations, they do it, right? In June, all their logos, a lot of their logos change. And then you think, no, the remaining 11 months of the year, they're still queer, they're still gay, they're still trans.
Quiet.
Same with Black History Month, right? It's like, it's not just February or wherever else, because it's celebrated at different times during the year in different countries, but still, people are not just Black for that 1 month in the year,
Yeah.
you know?
I think something you said earlier about courage really resonated. It takes a lot of courage. When I see brands like, I think Lush is doing a really good job at showing up, like for Palestine, for trans people. Brands who show up when they don't need to or have to, when they're donating funds to organizations, when they're, really showing what they're made of, when it's not June, when the cameras aren't on them, when there's no press. There are brands doing it. I don't think that every brand is guilty, but I also know that there's a lot more room, especially for the big guys. I think that it needs to be more set in stone because, suddenly there's a boycott or from one side and you're done. So when the fire gets hot, where are you standing? Who are you standing with when your bottom line is threatened? I think when a lot of people think about their financial success on the short term, but when you think about a brand success, what happens right now is really going to say what happens to you in 50 years. What you did then is going to resonate a lot more with people when it matters most. So I think corporations, if they really want to think about their bottom lines, they'd be smarter about how they respect and treat people who consume their products.
Yeah. It's a
Right.
long
It's just
game.
about respect. It is a long
Absolutely.
game.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
think
respect.
it is, and I think it also tells us a lot about those companies, right? Or the leadership, because leadership can change and then they do different things. But it's easy to have great values when it's smooth seas, right? It's like values are tested when things are not easy. When you have something to lose, how do you show up? Because it's easy to be cool and groovy when everything is fine. When shit hits the fan, how are you showing up in
Right.
the world? Yeah, I think that matters too.
It does. It does. And we see it all the time. We see it all the time. This back and forth ping pong over
Yeah,
fire is hot. It's a different administration.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. Okay, you work at Planned Parenthood, which is an interesting institution, a necessary institution, especially within the context of the US and healthcare. And at the same time, you're working outside of the system with Womanly. Do you find that those identities clash ever in terms of your relationship to power?
Personally, no. Planned Parenthood has always been, at least my team, the folks that I work with have always been supportive of Womanly, and they get it. They get why I need to do both. They understand the difference. So I've never felt pressure. I've never felt like I couldn't manage the institutional work and the grassroots work because so much of the work of Planned Parenthood is rooted in the work of people who are on the ground. And the mission and the core of Planned Parenthood is so rooted in the people that it's 100-year-old organization is, it's a thing, but it is still the people who reap the benefits of Planned Parenthood are still the people who reap the benefits of Womanly. Like we have the same mission at the end of the day, to give people care and make sure that they feel heard and seen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I think it's given me a lot of perspective. I think
Hmm.
it's taught me a lot. It's given me a lot of nuance in the way that I navigate conversations around funding, around marketing. And so I'm grateful for the experiences within and between.
Okay, love that. Thanks for sharing. Just to nuance this, I don't think I could do one thing in my life ever. I think I would
Mm,
be bored. I would probably not thrive. I
yeah.
need that expansiveness. So just
Mm,
wondering, do you
the
think you are the
same.
same? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same. I complain about being spread thin, but then I need the nuance. I need the challenge, and I want to help. I
Yeah.
like need to be seeing what needs to be done and then like helping do it. I want to be
Yeah.
on the bird's eye view. I want to see what's going on. So I do like it. I mean, would I make it a little easier at times? Yeah, probably. But I don't mind. I need the busyness. I need the rush.
Love
The
that.
pressure helps, yeah.
Question for you on that, actually. Just curious about, why do you need to be the help? Why do you need
Mm,
to help?
that's a great question. I don't know, I just feel that it's in my DNA. I was raised by a single black woman, and her mother was a single black woman, and who are just we do what we have to do. Like, this feels like work I have to do. It doesn't feel like work. Yes, I want to do it, but it doesn't feel always like I want to do it. Like, it's work I feel that I need to do, because if I don't, who's going to help? Who's going to
Hmm.
do it? Like, there's a reason there's not like a million womanlies,
Yeah.
because it's hard, and it's not it looks glam, but it's not always that glamorous. It's a lot
Right.
of um rolling up your sleeves. I just feel it in my soul that I need to be of service,
Mm.
and it doesn't feel, because of the benefits I see people receiving from that help. It doesn't feel like I'm working for someone else's wealth, or I'm building someone else's portfolio. I'm on the ground. I feel like I'm like educating and serving people in a way that fills my heart and fills my
Mm.
soul. And I don't do it for that. I do it because I know people need it. But it makes me feel whole.
Right. Right.
I just need it. I need to do it.
Right. So, an identity question for you. Who are you when you're not helping?
These are the good questions that I need to have asked. My therapist should be asking me these questions. Who am I? I'm a bit of a goofball. I like comedy. I like having really cozy, intimate conversations with people, and absorbing art in a way that's like otherworldly. I just think music and illustration and every piece of art that people make that comes from the soul is so filling to me.
Hmm.
That's why I like working with art, because it feels so obvious that health and art go together.
Hmm.
And so when I'm not helping, I'm absorbing, I'm reading people's work and trying to create, just be my best self, trying to be filled by what I missed in childhood around having emotional support from my parents and trauma that I've experienced. I fill those holes with art and
Hmm.
love for my friends. And yeah, I like a good time. I like a vibe. I'm a very chill person. I don't take anything too serious. I just want to enjoy life while I'm here, because you often hear about leaders in this space dying early or having so much stress that they get sick. And I don't want to stress myself out to the point where I get cancer, or I'm like, I already have chronic illness. I have my own issues with mental health, and I just want to enjoy every piece of life that I can when I'm not working. And
Hmm.
even if I can enjoy work, that would be great. Sometimes I do,
Yeah.
sometimes I don't. But when I'm not working, I'm watching film, or I'm going to a show and just trying to be in the world. Yeah.
I love that. Thanks for sharing. I did ask these questions because I see a little bit of myself in your answers, and
Oh.
I also had to sit through a lot of this what, how, why for myself. I think that last year, for example, I was drained by the work. And I think there are some people who are able to easily detach themselves from injustice when it's happening. And I don't have that muscle yet. And that means that a lot of things tend to weigh on me. And I think one of the things that has been helpful is using my own framework to ask myself, who am I when I'm not helping? helping, when I'm not supporting, when I'm not building, when I'm not trying to fix the endless problems in the world. Because there's that sense of there's so much. And for me, of course, I have kids now, and I'm thinking I need to make it better for them. I need to leave it better for them, and I had to unlearn in many ways that, I mean, I still show up, but then I'm thinking, how am I showing up? Why am I showing up? Because I had to unlearn that that was only how I could be
Mm,
valuable. I'm also valuable when I'm, you know, relaxing or finding joy or doing something
mm-hmm.
else like making candles, which I love. I'm
Oh,
not grappling with the world's problem. I'm just thinking about how can I make this more sustainable for my home. So
that's
that's what I was
beautiful.
asking. Yeah.
No, I think I mean, thank you for asking that question because I don't think I ask it enough to myself. I don't think I think about myself outside of work enough. I don't rest enough. I just work because it feels like my identity,
Hmm.
and that's not fair. It's not fair to my body. It's not fair to my mind. It's not fair to my soul. It's not fair to my ancestors. They didn't work hard for me to keep working hard. They want me to
Yep.
rest too, you know? So I appreciate that question, and I'm not a mother, so I appreciate your perspective around children because I want to have kids one day, and I think I'm often like, what's going to happen with me dedicating all of my time to this? Like, am I going to have a hard struggle with being a mother and being this person who constantly has to be on working and helping? And it sounds like there's still a pull, but it kind of tethers to your children.
Yes. I mean, you have to at some point, I think it forces you to draw a line
Mm,
because I reflect on even when my kids were younger, where I'd bring them with me, and then it was easier to rationalize because I could always have them with me in the rooms. But now they're in school, and then it's like, I want to be here for them, and I also want to do a lot better than my parents did, just in, I mean, my daughter sometimes asks me questions like, why did you do that? Or you doing this? Why can't I do it? I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm already killing parenting in a great way because I would never dare ask my mom that question. But look at you, 6 year old, asking me this. And I'm just like, okay, I see the generational trauma. It's like it's stopping with me, and that is the goal.
I love
But my
that.
points being, I think for me, the older they get, the more it becomes clear because oftentimes this work also takes not just the energy, but it also takes my money, right? Like I do the nonprofit bit a lot of times just like at my own time. And it's a lot of time because I think oftentimes when you do three, four things or even two things, people think, oh, you must do it half and half. No, I do it full time. I just sleep less, right?
Mm,
So I think for me, learning to also create boundaries for myself because it's easy when we think about creating boundaries for others or for the outside world, but I knew I also had to create boundaries for myself. I don't need to save. I cannot save everyone or everything.
yeah,
Like I also need to
yeah.
prioritize these kids that I have at home. I need to show up for them, and I often reflect on it's a bit morbid, but I often think of if I go out on the street tomorrow and get hit by a bus, like how would I feel in terms of did my body rest or did I
Mm,
work myself into a ground? So I'm still framing it even for myself. What does it mean to actually receive care, not from the world, but for myself? What does it mean to belong to myself, not to community? Community is wonderful, but do I even belong to myself? Yeah. How do I show up for me? How do I hold my boundaries? How do I respect myself? How do I honor my home? And also, how do I replenish myself? And that's the thing I'm also thinking about is I don't also want to slave for my children. Because if
mm.
my cup is full, I can show up better for them. Yeah. So, how do I prioritize myself even in the work of being a parent? So, there are a lot of things I grapple
That's
with as,
extremely
yeah.
powerful. It's very powerful and important to keep those in mind at the forefront. And
Hmm.
yeah, I'm very grateful to hear you say those words because it's a needed reminder and something that I can also remind the folks who I know who are also doing this work and are tired. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about your music. I looked up your album, Space Ghost, first. I want to know about that name. And second, is there a connection between your music and health?
Yes. So Space Ghost is my debut album. It's a culmination of songs I wrote over my 20s and my late teens. And I wrote the name Space Ghost comes from, so when I was a kid, I watched TV. I was babysat by the TV for hours and hours, so much so that I'd go into the nighttime and Adult Swim. I don't know if y'all have Adult Swim. Okay. So Adult Swim would come on and Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And then I'd be watching these adult cartoon shows and I'd be like, I don't understand it, but I'm watching TV because this is feels good. So that the loneliness I experienced, the isolation I experienced, the sadness, the pain, but also the joy I got from TV and cartoons and the imagination. I think that's a lot why I like illustration and color and just it was so much of my life. And so that was the name of the album. There's a song called Space Ghost. And it was the album's about trauma. The album's about childhood abandonment. It's about feeling lonely and isolated and regret, and it's questioning why choices were made. And I'm proud of it as a first album. I have another one coming out next year probably, and it's so much better and different. But yeah, it's and that one's also it's like very connected to when I'm a musician, when I'm playing music, when I'm writing, which I don't get to do often enough because of this work, is so renewing. When I was writing the album that's coming out, my next album, it felt like I was channeling something. The things that I was performing as I was writing and recording the album didn't feel like me. It felt like something had come over me, and I don't ever get that spiritual experience in anything else in my life. Maybe when I'm meditating, but it feels when I'm making art, I feel so free. I feel so myself. And that's why I keep doing it because it feels like a portal to something, to somewhere, or for someone, or for myself. I feel so free and it takes away stress. I don't do it enough. I would love a world where I have more space and time to write. But I'm very proud of this album, especially because I didn't have a lot of time to do it. So I really had to lock in and record and get it done. So I'm excited to release some new songs, and Space Ghost is like always my little baby. It's very much experimental, fun project that I'll forever be grateful to have put in the world.
Not that you asked for permission, but I do think you should do more of the thing that you love. Because just listening to you and watching you talk about, your music and your arts, like there's a shift, there's a difference, like there's a little bit more joy. And
Yeah.
you are not going to get more time. There's 24 hours in a day. You have to create time. You have to enforce it. I'm a bit militant about like creating space for the things that I want. And I think it's something that brings you joy. Imagine if you can say 30 minutes a day, I will do this, come rain, come shine. I think that's meaningful too. You don't need 4 hours, so to say.
No, you're absolutely right. I always need that reminder. Thank you.
And thanks for sharing about your music. It sounds, yeah, the process sounds just beautiful, like purging in a sense. And I
Hmm.
look forward to the next one. I want to talk a little bit around leading an organization where there's a lot of work that happens with volunteers. So people who choose to be there. I don't know to what degree they show up on a day to day, but just curious, what has that taught you in terms of leading others? I am guessing you are in touch with different personalities, different identities, different ways of being and working. How have you honed your leadership skills in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's been so Womanly will be 10 next year, which is mind blowing. And over the years, I mean, we started as all volunteer, just my friends and family. Me telling them that I had this idea and them not skipping a beat to start working on it with me. And I just kind of became the person guiding them. I wouldn't say leader. I was guiding the work. And then it grew to a place where people I didn't know became volunteers, where I was actually having to say and make decisions that felt bigger. And then we grew. We were a massive team at one point, and this was pre-pandemic. And then the pandemic hit, and so there was this kind of like boom of like, okay, gotta reevaluate. And so we took it way down. So now we are like 3 people with sporadic volunteering here and there. So what that has taught me about myself as a leader, it has taught me a lot of patience, trusting people, especially with volunteers, because they're not waiting on a paycheck. You have to trust that they know what they're doing. They're coming here because they're passionate and they have expertise. It doesn't always go the way you want it to go, and that's okay. You just have to be willing to be patient. If I was like, oh, I have this pot of money and I need you to do this job, it's a lot more straightforward. But when you're relying on people in their time, you have to be patient. You have to say your time. What do you need to support you? You really have to be giving in other ways because you can't give financially. So it has taught me a lot about empathy and compassion. And it has taught me just what you would imagine in any traditional leadership role, but just with more grace, and that it doesn't have to be this like hierarchical process that people just like somehow perform because it's like the capitalistic way. Yes, there's some decisions I have to make, but we make decisions together as a team. I run everything by everybody that things need to be run by. Like there's no everything's got to come up to me. I like to give people responsibility. I like to give them trust and grace to grow, because a lot of the time the opportunity I'm offering is grow your work. I can't ask you to be your best self or do your best work all the time. You're learning. I'm learning what it takes for you to do your job. And so I think having that like grace and having that like understanding that we're both building our careers together and we're relying on each other to make this mission happen, it has built my character a lot, and really understanding just people's needs. We're a really tight community. We talk a lot about the work, but we also talk about politics. We talk about each other's lives and very personal stuff. We're all like on Slack, and so I've built a bond with these people that goes beyond what you would imagine going into work at a corporate job would. We are way closer. It feels very familial. So I'm very proud of the community that we've built together, and I'm proud to be the person, kind of stewarding the work.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
What keeps you up at night?
The American politics,
Hmm.
the world that we live in, Palestine. Yeah, I mean, the immigration situation we have here with ICE, it keeps me up.
Already.
My own trauma keeps me up at night. Things that I've experienced that I have survived. Things that my mother has survived that keeps me up at night. Things that were violence against women and girls that we experienced and that women and girls are experiencing in the world right now. That keeps me up. That keeps me angry, and it keeps me up. Trying to, meditate and do things that make it easier for me to rest and take care of myself. But there are times when it's just overwhelmingly painful, and it's not this isolated thing. Like all of those things I just listed, they're all connected. So it's not like, oh, I have this problem. No, this is the problem. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. I can relate, completely relate. What are you aspiring to with Womanly, your music? You've actually shared a bit about your music, so we know there's an album coming. But
Yeah.
what is your next becoming?
My next becoming is, I don't know. I think I'm at a crossroads in a lot of ways. I'd like to be able to independently run womanly without a full-time job one day. I think that would be a goal of mine, to reach more people with the information that we create, with more support from brands and institutions and community. As a musician, I'd like to just keep making music. I see it as an outlet. I hope that it resonates with people, but if it doesn't, that's okay too. I just like making it and I want to keep doing it. I want to perform more shows and just be able to be an artist. I'd like to leave New York one day.
Yeah. Where would you like to go?
Somewhere green with woods and not, I want to overlook a mountain. I want to overlook a field. I don't want to see buildings for a good portion of my life. I was born in Philly and I moved here and I've just never been outside of the city.
Mm.
And I want to escape this mentality that I have to be connected all the time. I feel like that's contributing to me not being able to rest.
Mm.
I want to be an artist in the woods.
I
I want to
love
do that one day.
that. I love that. That
So
could
that's
be the name
coming.
of a book, an album, Artists in the Wood. I love that.
That's where I want to be.
Yeah. It will happen. It will happen. If you could speak to younger Attia, what would you say to her?
Say everything you wanted, you got. Everything you wanted, you got. And
Yeah.
you will continue to get. Because everything that I dreamt of when I was a child, I am living.
Hmm.
I am experiencing the best of myself. I am very grateful and privileged, and I never want to take that for granted. I'd also tell her everything that you went through is going to shape who you are, and you're going to survive it. You will survive it. It's going to be hard at times, but you have survived a lot, and you will survive a lot.
I
That's
love
what I
that
tell
for
her,
you.
and then I'm proud of her.
Thanks for
That made me
sharing.
cry on here.
Thank you for sharing. That was beautiful. If there's someone listening to this who's at the edge of their own becoming, or they're not sure how to find their path, what can they do from your experience? How can they start?
I think look internally, dig deep,
Hmm.
go inside. Don't look outside. We get like a little spiritual, but the we all have it in us to know what we need to do and where we need to go. And if you look inward enough and you listen, you quiet and listen, you will hear it, and you will, whether you accept it or not is another thing. But what you're supposed to do and where you're supposed to be, if that's not where you are right now, can be found inward. There's a
Hmm.
lot of things I think we need to clear spiritually before we get there. And so find out what that work is and get that work, do that work on yourself to become who you want to be and get where you want to go. But you can't get there if you have roadblocks. I think a lot of the time we are our own, biggest roadblock. I think I've spent a lot of time working on breaking down the things that I felt like were barriers to getting better at being a friend, being better partner, being better to myself. I'm still getting there, but just having that space cleared of like mental anguish and that trauma that kind of just shows up around every corner, knowing whether you can heal from that or place that somewhere that it doesn't block you. So just look inward and work on yourself. Go to therapy, go do a sport, or like find a way for you to shed,
Hmm.
because if you're not happy, whatever it is in you is the answer.
Hmm.
It's not anything external.
Hmm.
You can get out of that. You can get through that.
That is such
It just
great
takes work.
advice.
It takes work. You don't want to do the work, you're going to stay right where you are.
Thanks for sharing. Plus one on that. It's absolutely spot on. What is a book that most impacted you?
I always say this, but Siddhartha by Herman Hesse. I read it in high school. I had about 6 or 7 of his books, and they're all really the same. And they kind of resonate with the last question you asked, which was, how do you know what you're supposed to be doing, what your spiritual path is? And that book is just about that. And all of
Hmm.
his books are really about a singular character on a journey to discovery and figuring out what they're supposed to be doing, why they're here, and who they are. And I have always felt like I had a mission and a journey. And so everything I've been doing in therapy and in my personal life has been to make sure nothing gets in the way of that.
Thanks for sharing. For
Mhm.
someone who is performing success at the moment, instead of building what actually matters to them, peer pressure, whatever it is, what's one thing you want them to know?
Be yourself. I think that the authenticity of who you are is going to outshine any performance. It's going to make it so much easier to get through the day if you can just manage to be yourself and let go of identities that you feel are rooted in insecurity or fear of losing something. If you can't be yourself and keep what you have, it's not worth it.
Hmm.
Let it go.
Hmm.
Be
I love
yourself
that.
always. Like, never ever compromise who you are for anything.
Yes, love that. For people who building something that's mission driven, or serving a community like you are, what is a practical advice you can offer them in also taking care of themselves?
Hmm. I might not be the best person for that.
You are the best person for that because you have to think about it and then you have to make sure that you do it.
I know, and now my feet are held to the fire. I just don't want it to be cliche and not be something I'm doing.
Of course. Or maybe something you know you should be doing, even if you're not.
I would say just take time to go inward,
Hmm.
meditate, write in your journal, but find time, like you said, like 30 minutes a day. Find time to be present. I started exercising regularly last year because I was
Hmm.
always like, I really want to exercise. The step was just to start doing it. And so I started doing it last year, 30 minutes a day. And that made so much difference for me. And I started meditating again. I just think finding those, like, find what your rituals are, find the things that make you feel grounded in yourself or like at least closer to who you want to be, and do that more often. Make sure it feels good to you or like soothing or rooted in your spirit and
Right.
soul. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. What did you used to value that you no longer value?
I used to value other people's opinions.
Mm.
I mean, I do, but like way differently.
Mm.
Like, I respect people's opinions now, certain opinions, but everybody's opinion,
I love that.
how that relates to me is so different than it used to be. I
Mm.
don't perform, I don't change, I don't do anything because I think someone's going to think something about me. Or actually, I'll go the opposite. I'll get petty with it. I'll like make sure what you believe about me is true.
I
I'll
love
just
it.
be real obvious about it. Like, I know what you think, and it's true. I don't care what people think about me as much. I do, obviously, I have my moments, but I'm in my flow.
I love it.
I'm in my flow.
And it's so useful. I think just cracking that is so important because oftentimes we perform for the world at work and with our friendships and saying what we think and standing up for what we value. And I think that there's something quite liberating about just thinking, other people's opinion of me is none of my business. Yes, I will
No,
listen to who I respect, but then I take what I need to from it, and
exactly.
I'm not going to perform my life. So I think this is wonderful. And I think this is great advice for everyone listening. And also a reminder, for people who are on that journey
Yeah. A
as well.
reminder for me too, because sometimes you get on social media and you're like, should I post this? What are people going to think? Blah, blah, blah. What's my family going to think? Who cares? If it makes you happy, do it.
Yeah, I
Don't
love
hurt
that.
others, but like if it's harmless and it makes you happy, do it. Who cares? Who
Yeah,
cares?
love that.
It's not that deep.
Okay. I have a final question for you. So today we've talked on identity clarity. You seem to know who you are, and also you have clarity around your work and why you choose to do it. I guess I want to offer something to the audience here with us in terms of what it means to find alignment. I think it's rare that people actually do, who have to still work in a standard employment
Hmm.
space, find something that also aligns with the work they're deeply passionate about. So, in terms of just an offering to whoever is listening to this, who's on the path to find alignment, I know you've already shared around going word, but I wonder, is there anything else that comes up for you that you can offer to them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I get asked this a lot, honestly, because a lot of people are like, I work at a corporate job that I'm really not passionate about. How can I volunteer? Try things. Try things out. There's a lot of organizations that need help or need support. Learn about them. If you have like a passion for pets, or you want to help the homeless, the houseless, or you want to, whatever it is, try little things and just be of service, and then there will be work to follow. So if you want to switch your career, depending on how young you are and where you are financially, intern, like I did a lot of interning in college and it helped me so much, a lot of unpaid internships. So create opportunity for yourself outside of the work. If you have a weekend where you feel rested enough, you go to the soup kitchen and volunteer, or do something that fills your soul, and the rest will follow. You'll meet people in those spaces, you'll meet organizers, you'll meet leaders, or just reach out to someone who's doing that work and just say, hey, can I chat with you about getting into that career path or making the pivot? Rely on your community. People want to help. People are here to help. We don't live in an environment or a society where community is not a factor.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being here with me and being present for this conversation. I'm not sure what I expected walking into it because we hadn't spoken before, but it feels like we have. So this was really
Good.
nourishing. Thank you. Thanks for being
Likewise, I really needed this. I was having a day yesterday. I was having one of those, oh, why am I doing this days? But this helped.
here.
It was a big reminder, and I appreciate you for giving me the opportunity to speak about my work and my life and asking me the real questions I need to be asking myself. And you're phenomenal, and I look forward to continuing to follow your career and your work and seeing you develop as a person. So cool.
Thank you. Thank you. And likewise. And thank you for the work you do. We should all thank you for this work. It's brilliant. Thank you.
Likewise.
That's this week's Overnight Wisdom. If this conversation hit home, you're not alone. Thousands of emerging leaders, and people are doing the same work, figuring out who they actually are instead of who they think they should be. Subscribe for new episodes every Wednesday and join the conversation. What's one thing from today you're taking with you? Thanks for listening. I'm Chisom Udeze.